Today on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We'll talk about what can be done to fix Kenny Pickett if something can be done. We do that with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com, breaking down all the parts of Kenny Pickett now that we've seen the film. And then, of course, because we've seen the film, it's Stars and Skulls grades time for the Steelers' Week 11 performance against the Cleveland Browns. Again, it's the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. As I said before, we're joined by my man, Alan Saunders. He's back here from SteelersNow.com. You know him, you love him. He's always in your hearts and on your screens because we have him here. And then, of course, they do the Afternoon Drive podcast that you got to check out because they're doing a kick butt job over there. Alan, I talked a lot about what I saw wrong with Kenny Pickett, and I told people when we saw the All-22, it was not going to be kind. And Lordy, it was not. And it looked even worse here. And if you want to see something, go to my Twitter account, go see the plays I've posted. And there's just some of them. It's just some of them. But there's so many plays. Everyone keeps saying there's no open wide receivers. The receivers are running lazy routes. The coordinator's not calling anything to get anybody open. And I'm like, well, this guy's open here. That goes open there. That goes open there. So clearly what you're saying ain't what's actually happening here. What is the biggest problem that you see getting in the way of Kenny Pickett? Is it simply just himself and he needs to get his head out of his own butt, or is there something that everyone's missing here about why he cannot see the field?
Well, it's funny because I left the game in Cleveland feeling like that was the worst game that Matt Canada called of the season. I really did. I felt like they did not do a very good job of doing what they were doing well consistently. There were 38 dropbacks in that game when they were averaging how many yards per carry? I didn't think they ran the ball well enough. Early, Jaylen Warren didn't get a touch in the whole first quarter. Like there was all this stuff that they were obviously not connecting with Deontay Johnson. Then the last three plays of the game are all to Deontay Johnson. Like I thought Matt Canada really struggled to get what the Steelers were able to do against that Browns defense well into action. But man, like when you look at the tape, there's so much that was there that they just didn't take, and there's so much that was there that they tried. I don't even know what part of it is more frustrating, to be perfectly honest, because listen, I'm sure if I went back and picked through the tape of every quarterback in the league, there's guys that they don't catch running a free down the field. It happens to everybody. But the difference is those guys are also making the other play that they're looking at.
Exactly.
If I don't see the guy on the 15-yard cross, but I hit the out for 5, it's like, oh, well, okay, whatever. We'll take the 5 and we'll move on. We'll try to hit it next time. It was like the Steelers weren't hitting the big play, weren't seeing the big play, and then they couldn't even connect on easy routes. Look at the last drive of the game. Pickett has Pickett, Johnson and Pickens together on twin outs. One's 5 yards and one's maybe 10 or 12. I don't know. They're both very open. The timing is off with Deontay. The ball's there before Deontay's ready for it. Can't bring it in. He's got Deontay on that out. Ball's a little high. I don't know. It's those should be easy throws. This is not, and again, I think Kenny's generally a pretty accurate quarterback. I don't think that he is throwing the ball as well as he's capable of throwing the ball. I think they've generally had pretty good timing on the sideline stuff. I mean, everybody tweets you tweet the graphic, right? Oh my God, why do they never throw the middle of the field? Yeah, well, the thing that they generally do pretty well is hit the stuff to the outsides. Like, and they didn't do that in this game. And so I think what you saw there was, you know, a passing offense that has been struggling and playing against a good defense and really fell apart under its own weight. It just, they could not even do the simple things right by the end of that game. And some of that is that the Browns do have a good defense, but man, I mean, so much of it is Kenny Pickett, the receivers. You know, I try not to talk too much about covering Kenny in college because I feel like nobody cares, if I'm perfectly honest. But like, one of the biggest differences in Kenny Pickett from before 2021 until 2021 is that you could tell things were very different that year when it came to his level of connection with the receivers. They had better receivers. It was, you know, Jordan Addison was there for second year, and they had, you know, they had good receivers, but like, it was a different level of connection from the very first snap of the season. I gave a lot of that credit to like Brendan Marion, who was the receivers coach that year, who came with different things. And I just felt like he was a confident quarterback in terms of, my guy is going to be there. Like, this is where he's going to be. I can throw the ball. It just feels like every time he throws the ball to a receiver's back, it's incomplete. When he waits for the receiver to get open and show him his hands, he gets sacked. And he's not feeling the pressure very well. Like, there's, you know, backward spins to the left are still in there that were in there in college. He still hasn't figured out. Like, there's just so much wrong. And, you know, on one hand, it's obviously very bad, right? Like, that's not what you want. I don't think we're seeing growth in his second year. I'm not sure I'm seeing regression, but I'm certainly not seeing growth from Kenny Pickett in his second year. On the other hand, most of this stuff is fixable, and some of it should be easy fixes. Like, now it's come down to the coaching staff. And I don't know that I have a ton of faith in them. Again, go back to the big, you know, the chicken or the egg question here. But I think a lot of it is just mental, and like that. I don't have a word for it, but that sort of intangible feeling of connection that you have with someone where you know where they're going to be, they know what you're going to do, you know what they're going to do, and you're able to produce together that the Steelers just do not have right now. And I'm not sure why.
That's where I'm at, man, is that these are basic connections that need to be happening, like just simple things that any offense can normally generate. I mean, these are things that Devin Hodges were able to do at times with the connections, and that's what's so baffling. And again, it's not like Kenny Pickett hasn't done it before. We saw it last year in his rookie season. We saw it the first few games he did it.
But he's definitely done it. Like, he's capable of it. It has never happened consistently with him.
I agree with that, and that's where I look at it. And you're right. We could look at every quarterback that exists out there and find one or two plays where it's like, oh, you know, they could have seen this and they just didn't see this in time, and that's fine. And that's what a lot of people push back when I post the plays that I put out there on Twitter. But then I'm like, the problem is it's not one or two plays. It's like 10 to 15 to 20 in a lot of games. And when there's 10 to 15 to 20 plays left out there by the passing game, that's more than half the game. That's more than enough opportunities to make the difference in a game. And if you're not doing that means schematically the offense was prepared to give you openings against this defense, and you didn't take them. And at some point, those things have to be made. Those things have to be done. If they're not, then again, and you and I talked about this weeks ago, when the Steelers offense started to execute a few things that were simpler, it allowed Matt Canada to call things a little bit more complex. Not a majorly way, but just, hey, we could build off something. And I think you're even seeing that in the run game right now. That 3 straight weeks of 160 plus rushing yards. They're figuring it out. They're putting it together. But the passing game, there's nothing consistent to rely upon between Kenny Pickett, between the receivers. And I'm actually saying the receivers, they're actually, I think that they're not nearly as much fault as some people try to make them out to be. Sure, there's some miscommunication moments, but like, there's so many times where just pre-snap alignment where the Browns will give a guy a 10-yard cushion, and then he'll have a full 10-yard cushion, and Kenny Pickett will throw it to a place where he's trying to fit it into the smallest hole possible. Or they'll line up their defense to shade to one side, and there'll be 5 defenders on one side, 2 on the other, and Kenny Pickett will go to the 5 defender side. And I'm like, just look at the basics here and take what's there. And that's what's so baffling, that he can't do that. Alan, to get out of that, is this a situation where maybe they need to bench him and let him kind of take a step back for a minute? Or is there a way for him to fight through this and find that?
I don't really see how benching him helps. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's not like he's done something wrong. Like, it's not like it needs to be punitive, right? Like, you're not like benching him for his attitude or his behavior. Like, I'm not saying anything like that. Maybe, I guess the theory could be that watching a game could help. I don't know. I don't know how much I believe that. I think mostly he's got to play through it and learn. I will say this, and it's the same thing I was saying before. Here's how you can fix Kenny Pickett: run the dang ball.
Yeah, that is. I agree with that.
And if it is obvious to you and me, Chris, who are not coaches, who are not on this coaching team, not experts, if you turn on that all 22 and you watch the first 7 passing plays of the game and you're like, oh man, this could be a tough day, then why does Jaylen Warren end up with 9 carries?
That's a good question.
Like,
yeah,
I don't, like, again, here I go again. Like, I'm going to talk about Kenny's college career. 2018, had a lot of expectations, big freshman year. Everybody thought it was going to be real good. Turned out to be not real good. Didn't really fit in that offense. Lots of things went wrong. You know how they got the ACC championship game that year?
They ran the ball.
They ran the ball every play and just had Kenny hand it off, basically. He had threw for 8 yards in the ACC championship game, notoriously. All they did was run. Now, look, I'm not saying you got to go to that extreme, but clearly the running game is working these last few weeks, and then again proved that it was not just some kind of fluke when they did it against one of the very best defenses in the league.
Yep.
Okay. You're playing Broderick Jones instead of Chooks, who we know is not as good of a pass blocker as he is a run blocker. Okay, we know that. We're playing him anyway. He's his first round pick, and he's got good energy and helps to run. So run the ball. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is the big picture stuff that I think they've gotten wrong as an offense. There's nothing wrong with the individual plays that were called. There are guys open. There's stuff out there. But I don't think they're maximizing their potential as an offense based on what they're doing well, the play calls and sequence. Like, I think Jaylen Warren's off the field too much. Like, you cannot tell me that their best 5 eligibles do not involve 2 running backs. You can't. You can't tell me.
I agree with that.
Never, 0 snaps do you have both of those 2 on the field at the same time. Why? Like, it's not like the split back has never been invented. Like, the Dallas Cowboys were running that in 1985. Like,
they do have it sometimes. Like,
but they didn't. Like, none in this game. Like, it's like,
no, that's not true. The jet sweep to Jaylen Warren was at least one that I know that they were on the field. Right. They use it sometimes, but I agree it's not enough. And like that is somewhere you come at Matt Canada and say, hey, you got to get this done. I agree with you on that sentiment, and we got to go to a commercial break. When we come back, I want to keep talking about this because we'll get to the stars and skulls grades. But I agree with you. That's something that needs to be harped on, is that those 2 are not being used enough, and specifically also Jaylen Warren. You see how dangerous he is. Get that man the football. We'll talk more about this on the other side of the first break here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter and Alan Saunders, stick with us. We still have a lot to discuss. But first, we got to talk to you guys about our great sponsors at Game Time. GameTime.co is the website you got to go to in the app that you can download right on your phone to help you buy tickets for your favorite events that shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They give you killer deals on last-minute tickets and a best price guarantee that can't be beat, so you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're about to have. Download the Game Time app today, and it allows you to book tickets even up to the last minute, even up to an hour after the event has begun. That's Game Time. You can go right on the app and see all the prices that are available. You can even see the view from the seat that you're about to book, so you know that you're getting the seat that you really want to see the event that you're going to. And this includes exclusive flash deals on anything from Steelers games to Penguins games to pit games, to big theater events downtown, or if you're abroad, any event, most likely guarantee Game Time is going to get you in there. And the Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. You can find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else. Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Or go to the website GameTime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through all of them. I've faced plenty of times in my life where I've had to shoulder a lot of burdens and found answers because I've had the help of good therapists. Well, that's where BetterHelp Online Therapy comes in. BetterHelp Online Therapy will help you assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. With therapy, it can take a few tries to find the right fit for you. BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change therapists if needed. And they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. Again, that's 10% off your first month of BetterHelp Therapy Online by going to BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. We just finished the longest segment ever there. Going way over time. Ross Jackson's gonna kill me. So let's get to the stars and skull grades. Because we will get to the Kenny Pickett part of it. We're gonna start with the skulls. And just a reminder, these are our grading rubrics we use, kind of like football decals. Stars are for good, skulls are for bad. Those skulls used to be for defensive plays, but here they just mean bad things. 1 skull, 2 skull, 3 skulls. The more skulls you get, the worse you did. The more stars you get, the better you did. So let's get into it, and let's start with the worst of the worst. So that's my two. I have 2 3 skull players. One of them is Dan Moore Jr. The other's Kenny Pickett. Dan Moore Jr. got abused in this game by Myles Garrett. It was pretty bad. And it wasn't even plays where like Myles was doing a whole lot. He just wasn't putting his hands on him. And I'm like, you got to be able to do the basics here. And that's where I thought Dan Moore Jr. struggled the most. But I think everyone kind of acknowledges that, like, hey, he's one of the weak links on the offensive line, if not the weak link on the offensive line. But my big thing too is when you look at Kenny Pickett, he's the other 3 skull guy here against the Browns. He didn't commit the big turnover, but the more and more that I looked, Alan, and again, it's not just 1 plays or 2 plays or 3 plays or 4. There were like legit more than 10 plays that the Steelers had drawn up for a big play opportunity, and it was on him to make it happen, and he just didn't. And when you have that many opportunities missed and your team only scores 10 points in a game that they lose 13-10, that's where I do have to come down hard on Kenny Pickett for his performance.
Yeah, I have a tough time with Moore just because, like, that dude is that dude, and I don't really know that, like, many would do better. I didn't think they gave him very much help either. Like, there was a lot of one-on-one, and Moore's done okay in those. Like, that's where I kind of, I don't know, I'm back and forth on this because, like, yeah, I mean, that's tough assignment, but he's done well. He's done better in that assignment in the past than he did in this game. And so I think that's kind of where I'm with you. There wasn't a lot of redeeming done there really from either of those guys. I'm not sure Kenny had enough negative to really give a 3 skull, but there is just almost no positive. Like that's a tough grade. I don't know, like, because you can certainly do worse than that for your team, but like there's nothing good there either.
No, that's where I'm at there. And again, we can talk to our blue in the face about Kenny Pickett. I think the bottom line is Kenny Pickett needs to step up and make the plays that are necessary in certain situations. And again, these aren't miraculous plays. These are just taking what's right in front of you that's schemed up for any quarterback to win. Those things need to happen. But let's keep it rolling here with our skulls grades here. I have 1 2 skull guy, and that was Isaac Seumalo, and particularly because when I look back at this game, I didn't notice it live, but man, he was almost as bad as Dan Moore at times, especially when it came to protecting against the pass. He allowed 3 pressures on his side. Granted, none of them turned into sacks, but he was allowing guys up the middle. He wasn't communicating. He had a couple plays where he looked strong. He thought he looked strong in the run, but then there were other plays in the run that I thought he was just kind of like not as big of a factor as he should have been. And it continues to be a roller coaster season for me for Isaac Seumalo, because I think it was last week I was like, he was kicking butt last week. And there's other weeks where he's just been like the Jaguars game. I thought he was terrible in that game. I don't get why he has been so up and down when he was brought in to be the guy that could stabilize the left side of the line.
Yeah, and I don't get it. Like I really thought he could help. This is the second game against the Browns where he got beat up in the first one too.
Yep.
Like this is, I don't know, maybe it's just a bad matchup. I don't know. The Browns certainly have a really good defensive line. Like, I think Mike Tomlin's post-game comments were, I don't know how I want to say this, poorly devised. Let's just go with that. Okay. I don't think he was being honest about the problems at hand, but he's right about how good that Cleveland defense is. Like, there's no question that that's true. Man, I don't know. I think Seumalo could be better. Honestly, I think there could be more people on this list. I think Najee Harris could be on this list. I didn't think he was very good. Pass protection. The first play of the game should have probably been a safety. Now, should Dan Moore slow down Myles Garrett a little bit more? Yes, but the back can't go to the outside guy and leave the inside guy. Like, that's like one-on-one stuff. And then, losing 5 yards on the next to last offensive series of the game kicks them out of field goal range. And that was, that they would have had an opportunity to kick the field goal there. And the big loss there really hurt them. I think there could be even more probably if I sat there and parsed it down. But yeah, certainly Seumalo was tough.
See, I actually went back. I was looking at that play. I thought Najee Harris did take the inside guy. Like, that's the thing. It's like he took the free man, and all Dan Moore Jr. had to do was just stay in the way of Myles Garrett. Like, that was the problem with that play was Najee Harris went to go get a free man that was going to come through and be clean anyways, and he got that guy. The problem was Dan Moore Jr. with the guy right in front of him just let him walk through it. I didn't put that much on Najee Harris. I actually thought he did pretty fine when it came to pass block. I mean, there were several blocks. In fact, even PFF, who hates on Najee Harris a lot, gave him an 80.2 grade when it came there. And he was actually one of the better, 84.3 when I look at the pass blocking here. And he was actually one of the better graded Steelers by them. And I'm like, I ain't never seen them give Najee Harris props. I thought Najee Harris, like, he didn't get the yards that he, but I thought he got the yards that were there on all of his runs, because there were so many times that he ran the ball as usual and the Browns either collided, but the few times where he was given space, he got it. We'll get into why Jaylen Warren was so much better in a bit, because I got something special for Jaylen Warren. But there were a couple more guys that got 1 skull grades in particular. Darnell Washington. It was so weird because we're gonna get into the other tight end in a little bit, but this was the game where I was like, man, Darnell Washington, he could look a lot better against the run, except he didn't, or with the run, and except he didn't. And I was very shocked to see him not doing as well in the run blocking. And there were some plays that were blown up specifically because he didn't block his man. And I was like, wow, that was shocking. And then I threw in Presley Harvin. I don't know what else needs to be said or done about Presley Harvin. That could be
a 2 skull. Just because
he was that. I thought about giving him a 2 skull
because of if it was a one-off thing, maybe I'd be a little more forgiving. But it's been a cumulative. It
just keeps happening
now, right? It keeps happening, right? If it was just one bad punt, okay. But and also, like, in addition to the 25-yarder that set him up with good field position early, there were 2 or 3 chances to really pin him down deep.
Yep.
And they didn't. I mean, they got him to like the 15 or the 10 or somewhere like that. But there wasn't that make it up punt where you get it out of bounds inside the 5 or something like that. Like there were opportunities for it, and it didn't come. So yeah, I think that's a good call.
And it triggered me a little bit, because I remember, if you go back to the first time they beat the Browns, Presley Harvin played a major role. He had 7 punts.
Yeah,
he had a 61-yarder. He had 4 that were inside the 20. He was booming them. And so that's the inconsistencies of Presley Harvin is he can be so good and then he can be so bad.
I did think the rush bothered him a little bit. They had a couple newer guys on the punt protect team, so I wonder if that was like maybe he was just rushing things a little bit.
Maybe.
I go with one. Go with one. It could have been two though. Darnell, I agree. I thought he struggled in the run blocking after being so good the last 2 weeks, and I was really confused by that. Interesting. I wonder. I need to go back, and I didn't really pay that close of attention to this, but I wonder how much of it is heavier boxes against 12 personnel and him getting more difficult assignments in this game than he was those last two. I would wonder how that would play out if I broke it down.
Certainly, I think that's something that'd be something to look into. That maybe SteelersNow.com can work on. But we got to get to the star grades, because there were actually a lot more stars in this game than people would think for a 13-10 loss, particularly because the defensive side of the ball in the run game we're working. We'll get to those stars in a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, I want to remind you, this show is also sponsored by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. Get ready for the rest of the NFL season with all the incredible offers given to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 off in $150 period in new bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's right. If you bet $5 on your team to win it, on any given game, that's $150 that you could be adding in on bonus bets right for the taking. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. You can download it right to your phone, and as soon as you do it, you're betting on spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and when you do, that'll let you kick off the rest of your season with an offer you won't want to miss. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. Alan, let's get to the star grades here, because I actually had quite a few from this game, especially because of the defense, but and some of in the run game as well. So let's start out with, I actually gave Najee Harris a 1-star grade because I thought he made a couple really good plays in the run game. He had a couple really solid runs. He got stuffed on a few others, but that was one thing. But I thought that he held up there. I also gave Mason Cole a 1-star grade. He had some miscues in this game, but he also was a big part of Jaylen Warren's big touchdown run. He had a few other really solid run blocking moments. As I gave Pat Freiermuth a 1-star grade because he looked good against in the run game, and that I never thought I'd be saying. I was so confused. I was like, how is Darnell Washington getting his butt kicked and Pat Freiermuth doing well? And against the Browns, like, this is the game where it should be the opposite there. That puzzled me. Other 1-star grades, Shannon Sullivan, I thought he was pretty solid. He was targeted only twice, no receptions allowed, also had the interception. Ogunjobi was pretty solid up front. Trenton Thompson, DeMonte KZ, Miles Killebrew all deserve at least 1-star efforts for their work in the secondary. Chris Boswell, because he keeps making field goals. And I thought George Pickens, he made a couple grabs, but his run blocking was also key for some of the big Jaylen Warren runs in this game. What do you see there from some of these 1-stars to stick out to you, Alan?
Yeah, good call on the guys in the secondary, KZ, Thompson, Shannon Sullivan. George Pickens gets a star for not being the wide receiver to lose his mind this week. I think I'm okay with that. Pat yourself on the back, George. It wasn't you. You didn't do it, and you should feel good about that. That was congratulations. Like, you let somebody else take their turn. Nice job. Yeah, I think that's a solid list. Really is surprising in many ways in what was a pretty dud of a game that you had that many guys that I think were above average, but it's true, especially considering the defense. The one touchdown they give up is a 50-yard drive. The other, the first field goal they give up is a 17-play drive. Like,
yeah,
that never happens, and then, you feel bad about the one at the end if you're the defense, but man, you can only hold any team down for so long. And there's a really good defensive performance, and the running game was very good. It's really hard to lose a game when you are running the ball well, you are stopping the run, you are stopping the pass, and you're playing decent special teams, but they found a way. And
that's what makes this so disappointing. The Steelers won the trenches. They like, that was the one thing. I'm like, if they do that, they got this. They ran the ball, they stuffed the run. What else did you need to do? Apparently, you needed to throw the ball a little bit. That was all you really needed to do. You needed to hit the wide open man that was walking right in front of you. So those are my 1 stars. My 2-star grades here, got a few of them. I gave 2 stars to TJ Watt. He had 4 pressures in this game. He was still bringing. He was really helpful against the run. Made some really good plays there. I thought that was a big factor there. He's still kicking butt in this game. Myles Garrett was better in this game, but I thought TJ Watt was still TJ Watt for the most part. Broderick Jones could have been better in some pass blocking situations, but when I kept looking back at the run game, he's almost at the key of so many of the big runs. He's either sealing guys. There's some plays where he is reach blocking so far. He's going like 1.5 gaps over and getting in front of a guy and just sealing him just enough to give Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris their lanes. I'm just very impressed by what he does in the run game. That's why I gave him 2 stars. If he was better in pass blocking, he would have gotten 3 stars. Patrick Peterson, who also looks really good, and I think he started to find his place in this defense. I gave him 2 stars, as I did Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward. I thought they were big factors in stuff in the run. Alan, what do you see from these 2-star guys?
Not sure how much I agree with Broderick Jones. I thought he was tough in pass pro, and like that was really the first time that he kind of looked like a rookie. I felt like, you know, I'll say this too, going back a little bit. I think we could have given a skull to Joey Porter Jr. I thought both of those 2 guys really looked like rookies for the first time. Now I thought Benton had I'm sorry, not Benton. Benton was fine. I thought Broderick Jones had the plus, right? He had the let's go on the running game, and he did really well. Porter gave up a lot of those slants. He had a tough time with Amari Cooper. I thought they got Peterson onto Cooper a little bit after Porter was struggling early. So, but yeah, I thought Broderick Jones struggled in pass protection. But look, I don't know. That's kind of baked into my expectations for him. He's just not as good of a pass blocker right now. I love his energy in the run game. It just feels like if you're going to play that guy against that team, don't make him pass block so much. I don't know.
That's a good point there. That's a good point there. Joey Porter targeted 6 times, allowed 4 catches for 34 yards. That was kind of why I didn't put him up too harshly, because he had a pass breakup in the game. He was called for 2 penalties. He made tackles when he was there. I had a hard time putting a skull on him, because it was like, you gave if any of my corners give up 34 yards in the game, I ain't mad at you. You know, and sure, there were some of those were key important moments, but I felt like that was I wasn't too taxing about Joey Porter Jr. in those situations. But that's also why I didn't give him a star, because those were moments he could have risen up. So I gave him a neutral grade this game.
So maybe, all right, I get kind of give him that.
So yeah, but let's get to the 3-star grades here, because we actually have a few. The first and obvious one is Jaylen Warren, and I we have the bus ticket grade for when someone's utterly terrible. I want to come up with like a sweet ticket, like you get to go to the club or something if you have a game like Jaylen Warren did. Again, how do you go 9 carries for 100+ yards, helping the way he did in the passing game too? Jaylen Warren is building himself up to be one of the more respected. I mean, people look at this and say he's the offense. Like he's the guy that this offense needs to run through. And as a person who's talked a lot about what Najee Harris can do and should be able to do, Jaylen Warren's playing better than him. He's got back-to-back 100-yard rushing games, first person since James Conner to do that. And you can see the explosiveness. I think it's tough to deny getting him on the field more. And I think, to your point, you said this earlier, get them on the field together, because when you force a defense to have to be afraid of different directions the run could go, and both of those guys are also physical enough that they'll want to go block for the other one. I think that could be a serious part of your offense, especially as you're trying to simplify and bring things back so Kenny Pickett doesn't have to throw as much. Get them both on the field and get them different ways to get the ball.
You know, I'm just thinking about what kind of grade I think Jaylen Warren would really want after that performance, and I think the best one I can come up with is the ball. That's the grade that he needs. Give him the ball.
More touches.
That's the grade. Give him the ball.
Give him the ball. That's a pretty funny one. Give him the ball.
They should have run him more after the 74-yarder, and they should have 0 touches in the first quarter.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
You got to get him the ball.
You got to get him the ball sooner. And the other thing I don't think they're doing well with these running backs is, look, they're not playing the hot guy. Like it's fine to go into a game with a balanced approach and say we're gonna look at both you guys and we're gonna see what both of you have to do. You know, we're gonna play you one series, you this series, or you on first down, and you on second down, whatever. But by the middle of the fourth quarter, if one guy has 14 yards per carry and the other guy has 2,
you got to read the hot.
You got to have the guy with 14 on the field. You just have to. It's mind-boggling.
For the record, he did get 1 touch in the first quarter, but it was a pass that went nowhere. And
yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's one of those things where the Steelers cannot work screen passes. I don't know how else that you can do it. It's just teaching it better, but it's just mind-boggling how bad they are at execute. Like there was one play where Mason Cole, and this was where I didn't give Mason Cole too much credit. I thought he made a couple good run blocks, but like there was one play where he snaps the ball and there's a defensive tackle with it in front of him, and he doesn't even touch him. He just lets him walk up to Kenny and swat down the screen pass. If he just shoves him, if he just gives him a second there, that gives Kenny the window. The screen pass is completed, and they have 3 blockers with Jaylen Warren in front of him, and that can turn into a big play instead of a play that set up a eventual punt in that game. But to your point, Jaylen Warren, give him the ball a grade, is because he is doing it right now, and he's a 3-star player. And in fact, he's back-to-back weeks of being a 3-star player, according to our grades. Other 2 guys, another back-to-back 3-star guys, Elandon Roberts, who was on the field for every single one of the 75 defensive snaps of the Steelers and didn't look tired at the end. I wasn't so sure he could hold up doing that. Man, he held up in a big way in this game.
Just such an incredible performance from Elandon Roberts. Like,
jeez.
Like, he was, not only did he play every snap, and not only did he play a role that he has not played at all this year in terms of being a 3-down linebacker, in terms of being tasked for significant coverage all the time, he also got the rest of the defense lined up with Trenton Thompson playing in his second NFL game and making his first start, Michael Walker making his first start with the Steelers, Elijah Riley, who barely plays, getting snaps, Miles Killebrew, who barely plays, getting snaps, James Pierre, who barely plays, getting snaps. It was like the practice squad and Elandon Roberts and DeMonte KZ in the back of that defense. And you know what? They played pretty darn well. And we gave a lot of those guys credit for it when we gave them 1 star. But I give E-Rob credit for getting those guys in the right place, keeping their heads about themselves, getting communicated. Like, man, what a top to bottom great game. 4th most tackles in Steelers history. In his 8th season, he broke his career high by 4 tackles.
That's crazy.
That is a 3-star game right there. That is like the standard for that is it, man. That is anything you could want from a guy in a game.
So if it's get him the ball on offense, what do we get? What do we get in Elandon Roberts?
An ice pack.
He gets a lot of ice packs. Yeah, a cold one, a beer. There we go. There you go. Yeah. That's the ultimate 3-star.
Awesome game.
He had an awesome game. My last 3 stars, a guy I continue to be really impressed with, James Daniels. Of all the offensive linemen, he was the most involved with the run game, who never gave up a single pressure. And he continues to look like a good free agent signing by the Steelers front office when they brought him in. I think that James Daniels, he may be the Steelers' best offensive lineman right now. And I kind of get putting Broderick Jones on his side, because running behind them is a serious weapon.
After you give Jaylen Warren the ball, that's where he's going.
Yes. Go behind those 2
right
guys.
There. Yeah, go. Here we go. Yeah, the right side of the line has been really good in the run blocking, and unlike Broderick, James has not had the negatives in the pass pro. And that's a tough matchup. I thought that he did a really good job. Some of those things that Mike Tomlin was talking about earlier in the year about where the pile was falling, I thought he was really crucial in that effort, where there were not that many negative runs in this game. When it did happen, it stood out. But even when they didn't break things, I thought they did a really good job of just moving the pile forward and getting to 2nd and 8, instead of being in 2nd and 12. And that's probably why Kenny Pickett never had a turnover, because they didn't, even though they didn't do much on offense, they didn't absorb a lot of negativity either. They didn't have a holding penalty in a game where I thought the officiating was kind of slanted towards the home team. Like that does happen from time to time. I thought the Steelers didn't get very many breaks. Easy to whip a holding penalty out there, and it didn't happen. So yeah, I think JD was pretty solid in this one.
I agree with you on that. Like if I could give, I always avoid stars and skull grades for coaches and referees. But if I was to give one to referees, they get bus tickets because there were some
like egregiously bad. It was just pretty clearly a little one-sided to me.
There were some that were egregiously bad in my opinion. I still ain't seen one angle that shows a touchdown on the only touchdown the Browns scored in that game. There was a play where George Pickens clearly gets the sideline. They have the pylon on the sideline now. He gets the ball over and knocks it over with his wrist with the ball in front of it, and they still marked him back 2 yards. And I was like, What are you doing?
That they should have got a false start and they didn't when the Browns player jumped.
Final drive of the game, 10 yards on a field goal drive.
Bogus, 10-yard swing on the. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of the calls individually were like, oh my God, you just can't ever do that. But I thought added up, it became significant.
I'm right with you there. He's Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Get him, get all the stuff there. Alan, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
We're like 10 minutes over. So at @Saunders_PGH on Twitter, at PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Use your promo code Allen10 to get 10% off Steelers Now Plus. And Steelers Afternoon Drive with me and Zachary Smith on YouTube. Anywhere you find your podcasts, check it out.
Absolutely. We are way over. So I'll just say Chris Carter at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast Monday through Friday. We're back tomorrow with Josh Taylor. It's going to be a fun episode. We'll break more things down. Thanks for checking out the Locked On Steelers podcast.